is just a huge honor today to be sitting in my home, podcast interviewing Dwayne Tinker. Thank you so much for coming over today.
Thanks for having me.
This is going to be so interesting. Dwayne Tinker is a former law enforcement officer. That's how I met him. He was arresting all four of my sons at the same time. He was an investigator for the Texas Dental Board. He investigated dentists for issues ranging from patient complaints to insurance, Medicaid fraud, drug diversion, and even infection control problems. It is his experience that most dentists and their staff strive to do what is right when they know what right is. He quickly recognized a huge gap between what dentists know versus what dentists should know. He decided to become an ally for the dental community. Present day, Tink is the president and CEO of Dental Compliance Specialists. His company provides audit, inspection, and training services to help dental offices safer for dentists, patients, and staff. When he's not busy working with dentists and their staff, you will likely find him scuba diving in Belize. It is my distinct privilege to introduce Dwayne Tinker, a.k.a. the Tooth Cop. Thank you so much for coming over. By the way, Ryan, you missed the seminar I did in Belize. It was Michael Milkers had a seminar out there, and I took Zach and Greg, and I loved it because the boys, you know, when you live in the desert, you know, you can whine in the summers that it's so hot, but what people don't realize that the desert basically doesn't have any insects. And my God, Zach and me and Greg, we were pouring DDT all over. So we looked like we had chicken pox. And we end up staying in the house most of the time because if you went and enjoyed the ocean, you're just eating alive. So how do you avoid all the insects in Belize?
I scuba dive. Spend most of my time underwater.
Stay underwater.
Yep. Underwater, eat, sleep, or dive. That's all I do. We do liveaboard trips out there. So
Liverboard?
Liveaboard. Yeah, you get on a boat and you go out for 7 days and you either eat, sleep, or dive. So whatever you did last is last in the rotation.
Wow.
So it's pretty awesome.
So now you live in Dallas.
Yes, sir.
Dallas, is that where you were born and raised? Or?
No, born and raised in Minnesota, actually. So I got to Texas as quick as I could.
Where at? Minnesota?
St. Paul.
St. Paul, Minnesota. Yeah, my sister's cloistered Carmelite Catholic monastery is in Lake Elmo.
Okay.
Know where that is? Suburb.
City,
yeah. So to go visit her, I have to do business for 4 hours and 1 minute. So I either abuse Patterson or 3M. So I would go sit with the founder of the Patterson. Founder of the guy who took a public, Pete Frechette, and I'd sit in his office and bother him for 4 hours and 1 minute, or I'd go to 3M and talk to their organic chemist. But so what are you doing? What is I'm on your website right now, dentalcompliance.com, and my homies went to dentalcompliance.com. What do they find? What are you doing?
Well, we're working with dental offices trying to be proactive in preventing problems with government agencies. Having been a government agent, I know what that's like to walk into an office and to look at one issue and find 10 other issues and forget why I was there in the first place. So, man, if I can bring that to a dental office and help them to prevent the kind of problems that I used to investigate, make the office safer for the dentist, the patients, and the staff.
My 30-year anniversary from dental school graduation is tomorrow. May 11th. Yeah. And when I got out of school, the new big government agency that scared everybody was OSHA.
OSHA, right.
And then it seems like it was about 10, 15 years later, it was HIPAA.
Right.
So what are the government agencies that these dentists should be more prepared for and compliant with?
I tell you what, I work with a lot of different government agencies, and there's a lot of rules and regulations that affect a dental office. You've got OSHA, OCR, your state dental board.
OCR?
Yeah, Office for Civil Rights. DEA, your state dental board. I tell you what, we work with a lot of clients. Most of what we do is preventative, but there's 2 agencies that cause me to lose sleep, and one especially lately, and that is Medicaid and OCR regarding HIPAA issues.
OCR, Office for Civil Rights,
that's the HIPAA police. Yeah.
Oh, I never even heard of OCR.
Okay. Well, they're the folks.
I must not be OCD enough if I never heard. So HIPAA, HIPPA?
PAA.
HIPAA? Yeah. And what does that stand for my international ears?
Health Information Portability and Accountability Act.
Okay, so so Medicaid is I guess the bottom line is when you're dealing with the feds, if they find something wrong, they can really change your life. I mean, they can throw you in jail.
Yeah, and that's true. We think about things like Medicaid fraud and whatever, and people develop this image in their mind of a villainous person, somebody who's a crook, somebody who's trying to cheat the system. everybody, dentistry is a small community, and people know there's people out there that are doing that. But the people that can face consequences are not just those people, but it's people that make innocent mistakes for not following certain rules and certain requirements, administrative requirements, and maybe not even making those mistakes on purpose. When you're dealing with the king's purse, the king's coin, you've got to subscribe to the king's rules, and sometimes it's hard to keep up with what those rules and regulations are.
When we were in dental school, we had we could go out to Leavenworth Prison, and we loved it because in dental school, it literally would take you all day to get a filling done. I mean, the bureaucracy, the waiting for a check. But you could go out to the prison and do like 10 fillings in one day, so it was awesome. But I remember the number one thing I remember from Leavenworth Prison is that everyone in that place is innocent.
Right.
There's not a guilty person in prison. And sometimes these dentists get busted for Medicaid fraud, and they say, well, my receptionist was billing it wrong.
Right.
So they're always innocent. But I always wonder, okay, I haven't met too many humans that say, yep, I messed up, I'm guilty.
Yeah.
Seems like most people just say, I'm not guilty as my technicality. Do you think these cases that you've seen posted on Facebook for the last 5 years of them going in there and some dentist was billing something wrong, whatever, and they cracked down on them really hard and put them in jail. What percent of that do you think is ignorance versus he knew exactly what he was doing?
Probably a large part of that is he knew exactly what he was doing, but ignorance is certainly a considerable factor. And the unfortunate reality is the feds, they don't care. So
they don't care if you. They don't care
what
if
you're
you were intentionally doing it.
You're right. So, yeah.
Well, I noticed it's different with the DEA. It seems like in the 30 years, everybody on Dental Town who the DEA showed up and they were diverting writing machine, whatever. Yeah. If you just raise your hand and said, "I'm sorry, I know you got me, I can't stop," they're all nice and compassionate. They take them to the board and they put them in the Betty Ford Center.
Yeah.
But man, if you deny it, and then they prove that you're diverting, oh my God,
the gloves are off.
Yeah, the gloves are off. So the DEA seems to care if you're sorry versus lying. But what about Medicaid?
To some degree, what they're looking for is, attitude is everything. And when you're dealing with a government agency, that is not the time to display your ego.
Yeah.
Really, and I think a lot of the larger settlements, a lot of the reasons why we see dentists, getting hammered, is because they're playing their ego.
Oh yeah, I tell every dentist, my God, if you're addicted to opioids, you better get help, because if you go in there and say I need help, they're loving. But if they find you and your ego shows up and you think you're smarter than that and you lie, oh my God, it's
and think about the empire that you've got, whether you've got one practice or 50. There's a guy in Dallas just lost his dental license, built a successful organization there, lost his license. It's not suspended, it's gone. Because he refused to deal with his drug problem.
Yeah.
Was forced to sell his practices and get out.
Well, speaking of Belize, so, I've lectured in 50 countries. Whenever I'm in one of those countries and I meet an American dentist, 9 times out of 10, it's because they had their license taken away for prescriptions.
Yeah.
And they just sit there and said, you know what? I'm not going to stop doing Vicodin. I'm just going to move to Mexico, Belize. I mean, you go to, I can't tell you how many countries I've met American dentists. And so is that what that guy in Dallas, you think he's going to do? You think he's going to go down to Mexico?
I don't know.
Yeah.
So.
Huh. So right now, if my homies go to dentalcompliance.com, like when I go to work, I'm mostly doing, fillings, crowns, root canals.
Right.
What is your filling and crown and root canal? Who's calling you, and what is your top 3 menu items that you sell at McDonald's? What's your Big Mac, fry, and a Coke?
It's going to be chart auditing, help with HIPAA, help with OSHA or infection control. So, yeah, by far. We're one of the few companies in the U.S. that I'm aware of that does billing and record audits. And, we're not looking at this we're looking at it from a critical perspective, but we're not looking to recoup money. And, this is a safe place where dentists can go and have their records audited and get objective feedback, where it's not going to affect their pocketbook except for, whatever it's going to cost us to audit their records.
So do you fly to the dentist location?
We do everything remotely.
You do everything remotely?
everybody's got one of these in their pocket, a smartphone. Why not utilize the technology that everybody has? We do office inspections, training, everything by video, using their smartphone,
Nice.
and it works.
And how much is something like that cost?
Well, we have a couple different programs. We have what we call a Compliance Advantage program.
Compliance Advantage program.
Yes, sir. And we've got the Silver program, we have two programs. The Silver is for non-Medicaid folks, and it's dealing with just OSHA infection control, radiology. And
Okay, say that slower. So compliance. Okay, the first one was Compliance Advantage program, and
Silver.
that's silver. Okay, and that's for non-Medicaid,
For non-Medicaid, correct.
non-Medicaid, and then you do
OSHA, HIPAA, infection control.
OSHA, HIPAA, infection control.
Radiology compliance. And if they have controlled substances in the practice, we also have a DEA module.
Yeah, and that's really a bad. I noticed a sea change in that. I mean, when I got out of school in 1987, do you realize that back then every single month, pharmaceutical sales reps would come off and drop samples of all kinds of narcotics,
Yeah.
and they were trying to get you to prescribe the brand name instead of substitution permitted. Oh my God, that caused so many problems for so many dentists around the United States. I mean, from assistants stealing them, getting into. So you never, I don't think I've seen that ever in the last 15 years. That was something that was
Yeah.
common from about 87.
Yeah, I don't see the drug reps dealing with dental offices very often. But
Yeah. So
dental offices with drug problems, I see that a lot.
do you see that a lot?
Yeah, diversion issues, not necessarily with the dentist, but oftentimes with the staff.
Right.
I mean, they have easy access to prescription drugs, their doctor's prescription pad, the ability to call in their prescriptions. I've seen staff members that make up fictitious patients and then have one of their family go pick it up. So
Yeah. What percent of the time the DEA shows up is it staff versus dentists?
gosh, I would say almost 50-50.
And access is a huge. When I was young and dumb, I was a libertarian. Thought there basically shouldn't be a federal government.
Yeah.
But then when you start looking at the data, about 14% of dentists, they say, fall into substance abuse.
Yeah.
Most of it alcohol, but prescriptions. But they say the highest is the anesthesiologists because they're carrying it around.
Yeah.
And they say for them it's 40%.
I'm seeing that too. I believe that's probably correct.
Yeah. So and they say they're one-hit addiction. They try it one time, they're done. It's fentanyl.
Yeah.
And Ryan, can I tell you my fentanyl story?
What?
Can I tell you my fentanyl story?
Please.
So had Eric, the ex had it all natural. The second one all natural. Third one all natural. Fourth one tired, exhausted. She couldn't do it. And I talked her into getting epidural because I hate this having a baby natural by Dr. Lamaze. Only a man could convince women to have a baby natural. I swear to God, I wanted to get Dr. Lamaze in my office and pull all four of his teeth naturally while he was holding his wife's hand, breathing and saying, "It's just pressure. It's just pressure." If Dr. Lamaze was having a 9-pound baby, he'd be on an IV.
Yeah.
And so I watched the anesthesiologist, and I said, "Can I watch the epidural?" And he said, "Yeah." And he says, I said, "I'm a dentist, so what are you doing?" He goes, "Well, I'm using the same thing you use, lidocaine, but no epi, and that's for like the short-acting fibers." He says, "But then we want a narcotic for the long-acting, and for that I use fentanyl." And he shoved it in there, and the instant Ryan he shoved that in there, your mom was like, "Holy moly, what is that?" And the guy goes, "That's fentanyl." And she goes, "Man, that is good stuff." And I thought, wow. And that's the one-hit deal where if they try that personally,
Yeah.
I guess the average person can never stop until they crash and go to rehab.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a huge problem in our country right now. And I'm seeing a lot of people in upper class areas that are resorting to heroin because it's easier to get in some cases.
Yeah, they start off with we had the Arizona the Arizona Dental Association executive director yesterday, and he said that he's been here 10 years, and then he was in New Jersey for 10 years.
Yeah.
He said for most dentists, it started off innocent with like prescriptions for back pain or
Right.
something like that, and then it led to couldn't stop. So yeah, it's a huge problem, and that's another sea change I've seen. When I got out of school 30 years ago, the media was always the dentist physician was the bad guy. Grandma's dying of cancer. She's in pain. And you won't give her anything. You think she's going to be a drug addict. So we were the bad guy. And I remember a lot of the older guys, it was really hard for them to start writing for a narcotic.
Yeah.
But we were so much under the press of, look, you just did a root canal. You pulled her wisdom teeth. Give her some medication.
Yeah.
So the doctor started writing the prescription. And now the pendulum has swung all the way to the other side. Now you got 47,000 Americans died last year from an opioid overdose.
Right.
And now, again, we're the bad guy again.
Right.
And it needs to really start swinging back.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of dentists I know in Dental Town that just said they won't do it. Because when you're talking about compliance with DEA issue narcotics, you really open yourself up to getting broken into, stealing, theft. I mean, it's just so many problems to be eliminated if you just don't have anything in your office.
Well, and there's liability issues both ways. I mean, for those dentists that are doing in-office sedation, they would rather write a prescription for their pain medicine, for their sedatives, have the patient go and pick it up and bring it into the office and take it in the office to avoid having to deal with the record-keeping issues. But dentists in Dallas a few years ago did that very thing, and the patient was on the way to the appointment and struck and killed a pedestrian. And it hit the paper that the patient was on the way to the dental office for a procedure and had taken a sedative. Now, whether he did or didn't, I don't know where that situation panned out in court. And even if it didn't happen, that's the way it hit the paper. And Howard, as you know, public perception, what people, what's portrayed in the media, what people perceive, that's the only thing they remember, and that's the only thing that matters sometimes. So, PR issue for the dentist, considerable.
Perception is reality. I'll never forget there was a senator, I think it was Gary Hart out of Colorado, and he was moving up the ladder. I think he was going to be a presidential nomination. Then there showed up a picture of this married man on the back of a yacht, and the yacht was named Monkey Business, and she was sitting on his lap.
Done. Yeah.
Every person who saw that picture said, oh my God, he's cheating on his wife. He was dead in 1 second. And no one ever knows that he was doing it. He was a politician, so I know he was doing it. Yeah, perception is reality. So let's go from so Texas is, I mean, come on, Texas is one of the most redneck, Republican, conservative states in the union. One last question on DEA. If a dentist is addicted to opiates in Texas, are they compassionate, the board? If you go in there and tell your dental society or the DEA you have a problem, are they still...
I wouldn't go to the board, but they can go to a professional recovery network. Part of their licensing fees actually funds this group of social workers from PRN, and they're attached to the Board of Pharmacy that can go and get help anonymously and not have it reported, not have to deal with the state board. But
Wow,
if they
now
get
what
caught,
is
it's
this?
a different animal.
What is
it's
this?
called the Professional Recovery Network, and I'm certain that most states have a
Ryan,
similar...
can you see if you can find Professional Recovery Network?
Yeah.
Ryan, that might be a hell of a resource because
You want a cool interview, I can hook you up with somebody
from
PRN. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd like an article on that. I always
Yeah.
tell my editorial team we should be covering this every 2 or 3 years because
Yeah,
there
right.
are. I know a dentist in Arkansas whose sister I went to dental school with and graduated with, and he runs an alcohol rehab only for dentists.
Mm-hmm.
So he always has 20, 30 dentists in there year round for decades.
Yeah.
And I need to. I tell my staff we need to do that. More often than not. And also, Kevin was talking yesterday that during the financial crisis of 2009 drove a lot of people to drinking during the job. And
Well, drinking, but also, man, I'm seeing I wouldn't say an increase, but I see and hear of a number of stories about dentists abusing nitrous. And usually when they get busted, they're getting turned in by their staff.
well, I got to tell you some nitrous stories. So again, I'm a grandpa. But I got a 5-year-old granddaughter and a 1-year-old grandson. When I got out of school, the old units you could still go to 100%.
Okay.
So at least every year in the newspapers, the staff would come to work in the morning, and Doc had died after work the night
Yeah.
before, and he's sitting there on 100% nitrogen.
Yeah.
And then there was a big push to make it so it could not go to 100%. I think mine's capped at 70%. But it used to be a lot of carnage. I mean, I'd say in my first 10 years on Dental Town, probably 10 dentists were discovered by their staff in the morning on nitrous.
Here to 2017, I still see some of those older nitrous units in dental offices.
Really?
Yeah.
If someone's commuting to work right now with eating 2 Vicodin and a Diet Coke, What is it's called, the website is txprn.com. The Professional Recovery Network is a nationally recognized peer assistance program dedicated to helping healthcare professionals enter a safe, healthy recovery. Our program has served over 1,000 healthcare professionals since it was established by the Texas Pharmacy Association. So is it just a state deal for Texas, or is it,
It is.
cover the United States?
No, it's just a Texas thing. But like I said, I believe that every state has a version of this.
And you can hook me up with someone from there?
Yeah, I absolutely can.
I would love that. Because it's gone from being a moral issue like it was 30 years ago. You were a sinner, you were bad, you needed spanked.
Yeah.
To now a lot of people see it as a disease. That you were born with addictive genes, you have a more addictive personality. Do you think it's more moral or disease?
I would say it's more of a disease, really.
Yeah.
There's some people that are just more prone to addiction than others.
Yeah, the biggest study I've ever wished somebody could do, and I wish a pediatric dentist did, I've noticed my whole life, like when you're in college, some girls don't want to have more than 2 beers because they'll tell you, they just don't want to lose control. And then there's the other girl slamming a shot of Fireball and a chaser, and she just wants to lose control. And I notice in pedo, for 30 years I've done pulpotomies and Crohn's cell counts on kids, and when I put that nitrous on them, it seems like about half the kids don't like it, and some are scared. Like they'll just take it out. Like I don't like what the hell is that? And then it seems like about a third of the kids. I mean, they're 4 years old, and they'll say, "What is this? I like this." And it's like someone needs to do a longitudinal study to see if that's the kid in rehab at 21 versus the other one that just never wants to lose control. And I think it's a bigger issue with girls. It seems like the majority of girls don't want to lose control, whereas almost every man just was born to lose control. They're just not afraid of losing control. It's probably safer for a man to lose control than a woman to lose control. But I always wanted to do a longitudinal this kid was obviously born different, who loved the nitrous at 4 when he doesn't know what it is. Versus someone who rips it off because they didn't like that feeling.
Yeah, I'm always curious if somebody does a study like that. Look at their history of childhood trauma and see if there's any association there. But you find a strong correlation.
Yeah, that's what all 4 of my boys say. That's what they go to every night. So let's we crushed the Professional Recovery Network. If anything, guys, if you went to TXPRN. They have a helpline number, 1-800-722-5152, 1-800-727-5152. I'm sure at least if there was another one in your state, I'm sure they could direct you somewhere.
I just want to point out before we move on here, Howard, they deal with substance abuse, but also mental health issues. Man, when I was with the dental board, I had 2 dentists that committed suicide. And both of those cases were standard of care investigations that, in my experience, I didn't see but maybe a disciplinary action. I definitely did not see the dentist facing losing their license. Dentistry draws a certain personality trait.
But when they were under investigation, they killed themselves?
Yeah, they were worried that they were going to lose their license, Howard. They were terrified that everything that they worked for was going to disappear. And I find that most dentists are like perfectionists. They have just that internal motivation, that internal need for perfectionism, and to have somebody call that out. And to realize that you could lose everything, even if that's not the reality, but that's the perception that you have. To see that manifest by way of suicide, get help if you need it.
Yeah, and that's a problem because of the damn deans. The deans of the dental school want all the 4.0s. The 4.0s lived in a library. They're not well-rounded. They're perfectionists. They're crazy. If any amazing, well-rounded person in college who made A's, B's, C's, did volunteer work in a frat, went back on weekends and helped his grandma, any form of being a well-rounded person, you would never be a physician, a dentist, or a lawyer in America. So the natural selection, and then the deans, it's even worse with these U.S. News and World Report rankings. So they want the best of the best, so they can rank number 1.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like the priesthood. My 2 older sisters are Catholic nuns, and when you say I can only accept you if you're a man and never get married, never have sex, and never have a family, well, you don't get the average guy.
Right.
Yeah, and that comes from wrong. We've seen church scandals,
Right.
And it's like, and all these people complain about the church. I like to say, well, why don't you run your dental office where every one of your employees has to be a male virgin that doesn't get married or have children, and the priest didn't have to do that the first 1,000 years of the Catholic Church, and they need to reverse that because if you go, I look at all the Lutheran ministers in my office, which by the way, how weird is this? 3 of them, their first name is Dawn. So they're all Lutheran ministers, and 3 out of 4 have a first name Don. They just seem so much more well-rounded and normal because they can hire someone who wants to have a family. Mm-hmm. So if the deans would back off this insane requirements, and who cares if you get an A in physics and chemistry and biology? You're never going to use any of that shit anyway. I mean, what's more important is that you can communicate with the patient.
Right.
You have empathy for the patient. I'd rather pick a kid who was big in scouting and volunteering and spent a lot of time helping the elderly in nursing homes than some guy that got a A+ in organic chemistry. I mean, it's not even matching the skill set.
Soft skills are so important today.
Yeah, and if you don't have empathy and you don't have sympathy and you can't communicate, you're in the wrong profession.
Yeah.
Because these patients pick it up in 3 seconds.
They demand it today.
Yeah. And in 1950, whatever the doctor said, everybody respected authority and said, okay, do it. Now I talk to my patients who are pediatricians, and 1 out of 4 women say, you're not giving my kids vaccines. So they have to spend a lot of time. And a lot of them, you have to think long term. Okay, she's not ready now.
Yeah.
But if I keep talking to her, maybe when the kid's 1 or 2 or 3 or and some of them they're never going to get. So it's a whole different ball game.
It is.
Yeah. So you want to move on to what do you want to do next? OSHA or HIPAA?
Well, let's talk about HIPAA because that seems to be the big animal today. Certainly the one I want to talk about the most because it's the one I deal with the most from a problem standpoint.
Well, go back to the history of this. Some of these kids might have thought HIPAA was started by George Washington. When did HIPAA come about, and why did that all come about?
Really started to come about 98 or so. Really hit the scene about 2003 for the HIPAA privacy rule, 2005 for the security rule, and things have evolved since then. 2009 we had the HITECH Act, which kind of gave some additional requirements. And added another set of responsibilities. 2013, the final omnibus rule gave us some additional clarity on what OCR's expectation is for business associates and covered entities, which covered entities, that's like healthcare providers, dentists, dental offices, people that we do business with. And in the recent 4, 5, 6 years, more and more states are realizing that HIPAA doesn't go far enough in their requirements for dentists to protect patients' information. And so a lot of states are adding more stringent requirements than the federal standard. And this isn't being very well received. There's a lot of dentists out there that don't like government regulations, and I get it. I don't do compliance because I like government regulations.
You say you do or don't?
I don't. No, I'm a former government agent. And you think, hey,
So how old were you when you moved from Minnesota to Texas?
I was 22.
Yeah, so you lived 20 years in Texas.
Oh, yeah.
Going around the world, many cultures want a partnership with the government, like all of Scandinavia, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Finland. I mean, so many countries, Australia, New Zealand, Canada. They're like a partnership with the government.
Right.
But it's very unique in America where it just seems like the over 51% of Americans don't want anything to do with the government. It's a cultural thing.
That's how America was founded.
Ronald Reagan won presidency because he said, the government is the problem. They're not the solution.
Right.
I mean, he campaigned on that these guys aren't going to fix any of your problems. These guys cause all your problems. and that was the beginning of this serious dysfunctional rift between business and government. So if you're in America, you always approach the government over half. But I think dentists are far more conservative than the American electorate. In fact, the executive director of the Arizona Dental Association was saying yesterday, he goes, dentists are conservative.
Yeah.
They're just massively conservative. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they don't like all this stuff, this HIPAA stuff.
No, I agree. I understand. And to think I used to be part of the problem. I used to be that guy to walk in and say, hi, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Well, now I can look back and laugh at it. it wasn't a laughing matter when I was in the thick of things, but now I
The,
realize
the only thing the major beef I have with HIPAA is we have to do all this stuff to protect information while
Yeah.
that patient posts every personal thing in their life on Facebook.
You're right.
Including their cell phone number, their emails, the
Yeah.
baby's birth date. I mean, it's like, again, that's that culture thing. She has no problem posting
Yeah.
everything on Facebook.
right.
But man, dealing with the government,
Yep.
I don't want to tell you my name. Yeah.
Yep. I get it. Yeah.
So do you think HIPAA could be something that I mean Trump's canceling things right and left. Do you think?
Yeah,
you think
HIPAA's not going away.
It's not going
Affordable
away.
Care Act. I'm sure that's probably just a matter of days until it's gone.
Seriously?
But, well,
the
but a lot of the
Affordable Care Act,
requirements
Obamacare.
that we see, a lot of the compliance requirements we see in the Affordable Care Act, I'm pretty sure they're going to transcend into whatever we have before. The government's, they've gotten that certain level of power and strength. They're not going to reduce that. They're still going to have the same compliance requirements. They may be labeled differently, but they're still going to expect people to do what they call the right thing.
So Socrates said that humans have two emotions, fear and greed.
Yeah.
So let's start with the fear. If this guy's listening and says, screw HIPAA, I don't care.
Yeah.
What's the worst case scenario for one of my homies saying, screw HIPAA, I'm not going to comply?
It doesn't matter who you are, what kind of background you have, they'll kick your ass and take your money.
And
Can I say that here?
this is Dennis Uncensored. You can say
Okay.
anything. So like what name a story you've seen where
So it's always easier to work with the dental offices when they're not in trouble, working preventatively. But people don't buy prevention; they buy painkiller. So I feel like we've kind of become that company that people go to when they're in trouble. They got their butt in a crack. I got one with the dentist in Dallas. Had a patient that filed a complaint on them. Patient posted a scathing review. Dentist was pissed off and thought, "Hey, what the heck? That's not right." Typed in a big old detailed response about things that he definitely should not have. You would look at it and go, "Man, that was probably dumb."
I get like be cleaner on the exam because he's had
So-
the tooth number, the treatment,
Remember
she
the
had.
amount that she owed, her unwillingness to cooperate. I mean, just totally detailed what happened with her and also the financial record. And most people look at that and go, "Oh God, that was completely inappropriate." So patient saw that, filed a complaint, said, "What? OCR got involved, and immediately the dentist is in a defensive position. Whenever you're dealing with the government, you're always in a defensive, which we know is a weaker position. He hires an attorney, which I would never. Can I pause for a second here? I would never deal with the government without an attorney. A lot of these dentists think I'm a doctor, I can do this. Don't do it. You're crazy.
Dentists know everything. They sign 5-year real estate contracts and don't have a lawyer, right? They sign
That's
up
foolish.
for PPO contracts and don't even read the contract because they know everything.
Yeah,
You got to be
that's
humble.
foolish.
You got to be humble.
Yeah, very much so. So attorney calls me up and says, "Look, I've got a guy that's in trouble. We need to get him up to speed. We need to get him up to speed with compliance. We need, what you do, establishing their policies and procedures, and help hold their hand and get them up to speed while they're being investigated." Well, lo and behold, the dentist gets another scathing review, posted another detailed response, and who found it was OCR. So the first time, shame on you. We are going to do some corrective action here, do a little education, tell you don't do this, but you did it again. You watch. We're going to see a very large fine from the situation here. So,
What do you think it could be?
that's going to be about $500,000.
Yeah, and all because of his ego. And
Yeah.
you know what they say? I've podcasted SEO marketing people, and they say that when a human goes to Yelp or whatever, and they see like 50 5-star reviews and no 4, 3, 2, 1,
Yeah.
it's not even believable,
Right.
Because they're thinking back. Okay, if I go to my Thanksgiving dinner family with the whole family, okay, at least 3 of my uncles are nuts,
Right.
So they expect to see 5 people say, "You're the greatest thing since sliced bread,"
Yeah.
and one that says, "You suck," and so dentists, they just got to let it go.
Right. There's nothing wrong with posting a response saying, "Hey, I understand that you had an unfortunate experience here. We strive to put forth our very best, and sometimes things don't work."
And that's what they say:
leave it
show
alone.
empathy.
Yeah, right.
I am so sorry. I am so sorry things don't work out. If there's anything I can ever do,
Yeah.
please let our office know.
Yeah.
Just show empathy to your crazy aunt.
I had a dentist call me up one day about 4 or 5 years ago, and he had a problem with the patient, didn't know how to respond to it. And I said, "Well, doctor, did you call and talk to the patient?" "Oh, no, I can't do that. I'm the doctor." I said, "No, that's exactly why you need to."
Yeah.
And it was after hours. It was just he and I. There was nobody for him to delegate to. I said, "Why don't you pick up the phone and call her?" And this patient was threatening to sue him and all that, and he did, and he was smoothed it over, and he was like, "Man, and I can't believe that worked." That's
Yeah.
all people want is to feel acknowledged by the
I
doctor.
know.
Get off your high horse and make that call.
I know, and if someone in your office is in charge of the online marketing or social media or whatever, at the morning huddle, if someone shows up at the morning huddle and says, we had an anonymous complaint and this is what she said, and in one sentence, one of the assistants say, "Oh my God, that was Marianne," and then they run to the phone and go call her, "Marianne, why did you know?"
Yeah.
And then usually she deletes it, comes back. It's all communication.
Right.
By being humble,
Right.
with empathy and sympathy, instead of being arrogant. And anytime I've ever been on an airplane and I just lean over to the person next to me and say, "Hey, if you had to describe a dentist in 3 words, what would it be?" It's never sweet, adorable, I love him, he's the best thing in the world. It's arrogant, talks down to me. It's like I'm a student in a class having a nun smack my... I mean, you walk by hygiene rooms. The hygienists just all scolding their patients all day long. That's old school. That's not 2017.
Don't ever sit next to me on a plane. I'm just kidding.
So okay. So what do you actually? So they call you up. Oh, you
Yeah.
never. You said you had 2 programs. You had the Compliance Advantage Program Silver.
Right.
These are for the non-Medicaid. So
Right.
So what's the other one?
The other one is gold.
Okay, so you
And-
have gold and silver.
Yep.
And what percent of the dentists would you say in Texas are Medicaid providers?
I can't tell you that percentage. It's a pretty large number.
It is a large number.
Yeah.
Huh. It's funny how the states can't figure out why they have low or medium or high percentage, but it always comes back to reimbursement. I mean, if you pay the dentist 30% of their fee schedule,
Yeah.
and then you wonder why only 10% of the dentists participate. So if they have a high utilization rate, they have a higher fee schedule. And so that's the gold plan. So what does the gold plan cost? What does the silver plan cost?
So the silver plan is $35.64 a year.
$3,564 a year.
Yep. And then the gold plan is $47.64 a year.
It's how much?
$47.64. A lot of people like to make
What is the deal with 64?
Well, what it is breaks down to a nice even monthly payment. It's $297 a month for silver or $397 a month for gold.
$297 a month for silver and $397 a month.
For gold, yeah.
And I'm just curious. So why didn't you just go $300 a month and $400 a month?
I guess I could have.
But I know I've repeated myself this still, but you know why Americans do that? They think that the reason things sell for 99 cents is because psychologically it sounds
right.
less than $1.
That's right.
And that is no science behind that.
Right.
The United States has more economists that have won the Nobel Prize in economics than any other country. Most of them are from the University of Chicago. There's no data to support that. What it is back before there were computers and you had a cash register, you needed some data points.
Right.
And one of the data points was I need to know how many transactions there were. So they would charge everything 99 cents. So you give $1, they had to give a penny. So they'd start the day, they'd break open a roll of pennies. There's 50 pennies. So now at the end of the day, there's 20 pennies. So now I have one data point that there were 30 transactions.
Okay.
So all the 99s was for internal control over peculation and auditing. They just wanted to measure transactions. And it's folklore myth that the consumer responds differently to 99 cents versus $1. But anyway, okay. So it's for $297 a month if they don't take Medicaid, and for $397 a month if they do take Medicaid. What do you do for them?
Well, we do about once every 6 to 8 weeks. We do an inspection of the office. We have dedicated time, appointment time with that practice.
And that's through FaceTime.
We use a different software, but it works very much the same way. Yeah.
What software do you use?
We use a product called Zoom.
Zoom.
Yeah. So
And
we
is
can
that
do-
on their on their website or their smartphone?
Yeah. So it's a secure communication
okay.
link. So we can do everything from video interface to I can share my screen, they can share their screen. So we do about an hour consult with them about every 6 to 8 weeks, and we're looking at one aspect of their practice each time, rather than do a comprehensive, audit or assessment of the practice, and giving them a long, detailed report, which is very daunting, very overwhelming. we feel that by breaking this up into smaller segments, we can look and take a little snapshot in one area, such as infection control. There's all kinds of infection control in dental offices, and it's the little things. We slow down, we pause, we actually watch them process instruments, look at how their sterilization room is set up, watch how they disinfect their operatories. Are they wearing PPE properly? While the office is
PPE?
open, yeah, personal protective equipment. Are they wearing their mask on their chin? Are they wearing clinical jackets when they should be or not? And it gives us a chance to kind of give them that third-party feedback. Hey, here's the standard. Here's what you guys are doing. There's a little gap there. How do we?
That was
close
one of the most disruptive things, the clinical jackets, because the first couple of years I practiced before OSHA, and then the HIV was coming out, the AIDS, and they had to wear these clinical jackets. Well, we're in Arizona, we're in the desert. It's 118 degrees outside. Every one of my staff always wears shorts and short sleeve shirts, and then OSHA made them wear long pants, and oh my God! In fact, I had one hygienist said, "Howard, if you make me do that, I will quit." And I was like, But anyway, I didn't say anything, but after a couple, 2 or 3 weeks, said, "Come on, you got to wear pants," and it was insane. But I mean, like someone could catch AIDS from something splashing on your leg.
Yeah, and I understand your point. The problem is if she does, and she can point to the fact that you didn't enforce and make her wear it, guess who's eating that liability?
Yeah.
Yeah, is it worth it? Put the dang jacket on.
Yeah.
It's not.
And I also think it's an ego thing when you go to 7-Eleven or Circle K and you'll see docs in there wearing their scrubs.
Yeah.
Like, you can't wear your scrub to Circle K.
Well, certainly not if you're not wearing a clinical jacket over it, and you've got other patients' saliva all over you. That's gross.
Yeah.
But people don't think about it.
Yeah, they just want to. I just think they just go there and they want everybody to know they're a doctor.
Yeah.
And it's like, again, it's that ego thing.
Right.
So, are most of your clients in Texas, or you have clients in other states?
It's where we started, Howard, but we've grown across state lines very quickly, and word's gotten out about what we're doing. And I think one of the reasons for our success is we really care about the people that we work with, and I think that speaks volumes.
So they should go to dentalcompliance.com.
Mm-hmm.
And what is the initial interview? I mean, do they fill out a form? Do they call you? How does this process start usually?
Well, there's a couple different ways we try to be accessible to. We realize we're dealing with multiple generations of dentists. Some are comfortable on the phone, some are comfortable. We actually have people sign up without ever talking to us right from our website using our chat function, which is kind of cool when that happens. And we have people call us and say, "Hey, look, I need some help. Help me out." So it's a really easy process to get started. Just call and say, "Hey, I'm in. What do we do?" So we do this like most people put it on the credit card. We just hit their card every month and get to it. All we ask for is a minimum 12-month commitment. After that, it's month to month. And I listened to your interview with the dental billing guy, and I love what you said in support of not having contracts. It's hard not to do that when we're doing compliance stuff. Only because we start working the practice, get them into compliance, and they sell the practice halfway through. So
okay, I'm. If you're driving down the road and you're a Twitter, Dental Compliance is at DDS Compliance, and I just retweeted a tweet, so you could find his contact by just going to Twitter and looking for the retweet. I just retweeted MB2 Fines commentary, Dwayne Tinker on YouTube. What is an MB2 fine?
it is a dental group based out of Dallas that ended up having to settle with the government over some Medicaid issues.
Oh, so MB is MB2 is Medicaid?
No, ME2 is a dental group. They're a DSO.
Oh, okay. And what was their story?
The long and the short of it is they, like a lot of organizations, when you're, represent a large footprint in the Medicaid space, found themselves being audited and investigated, and they found some issues regarding some of their marketing or advertising processes, and ultimately found some issues related to their billing to Medicaid, and basically said, hey, you're going to enter into a settlement with us and we won't kick you out of the Medicaid program. So that's what they did. They had settled to pay back a pretty good sum of money, and they're being monitored by a third party and the government for 5 years.
Do you usually do this? I mean, if one of my homies does this, is this something you can delegate? I mean, is this something that the lead dental assistant should be your point of contact? Should it be the hygienist, or does it really need to be the doctor?
No, I think this should be delegated. And like Ronald Reagan says, trust but monitor. I always want a gateway to the dentist. We've had some staff members that have tried to cut us out. They're not showing up for the inspections. They're not following through on stuff. When we do the inspections, when we do the next inspection, we pause and say, hey, the things that we needed to fix from the last inspection, where are we at on that? What did you do to correct those things? And sometimes we catch people not doing things that they're supposed to, or the staff members trying to cut us out. I want to be able to let the doctor know, hey, look, we had 6 no-shows for your appointments, and you need to know what's going on behind your back here. Whether it be embezzlement issues or, staff members just trying to sneak by with things. We don't deal with embezzlement stuff, but those are usually indicators that there may be a problem staff member when somebody's trying to put distance and isolate the dentist from his staff and from their vendors.
So what are you looking for on dental record auditing?
To make sure that your documentation supports what you're billing for, and minimize your likelihood of having to pay recoupments due to insufficient documentation.
Okay, I'm sure you know this, but I'll just tell you that every single dental malpractice attorney I've ever met or podcasted says that when they get the charts, and this whole thing is about a root canal you did on 3 and a crown, they get the chart and all it says is root canal number 3. That was the whole notes. I mean, they say basically no one takes accurate notes.
I would agree. That's that's a pretty good assessment.
And this if they get sued malpractice, it's a bad thing. In fact, and here's another thing about their arrogance. Not only is it a bad thing, but when they actually go to jail, it wasn't because of the initial root canal crown. It's because they went in and changed and altered the record. And those lawyers said those forensic people prove it every time.
Yeah.
If it's on a computer, they'll definitely prove it.
Yeah.
But even on paper, there's experts that can look at a note and says, no, that was written at a later point than the first paragraph.
Right. It's really different.
Do you agree with that or disagree?
No, I do agree with that. People try and sweep things under the rug, and it just doesn't pan out well. A lot of the things that dentists end up having to pay recoupments for are just innocent mistakes, but you take it to a whole new level when you try and cover something up. Yeah.
So these dental records, is that so? What are they mostly doing wrong? What do you like to work on?
Well, more and more dental offices are using electronic records or some sort of EHR, Dentrix, EagleSoft, whichever.
Do you have any favorites on those?
Well, I'm kind of partial to both EagleSoft and Dentrix, just because you can populate whole templates into those notes very quickly and very easily.
What about Open Dental?
Same thing.
So you like Open Dental?
Yeah.
Do you hear that? A compliment for Dentrix and EagleSoft on Dentistry Uncensored. Please tell your Patterson and Shine rep that Howard actually allowed a compliment for those two bastards on his show. I just will never forgive them that they won't hook it up to Quicken Online. So you have all your accounting here and all your dentistry here.
Right.
Total schizophrenia. I mean, it would solve so much. It'd make life 25% easier if those guys would do that, and they just don't care. But anyway, continue. So when you audit, do you log into their Dentrix, SoftDent, EagleSoft?
Yeah, we do. We log in and would basically snap a screenshot so that we don't have to spend hours and hours in their system. A lot of people don't have an extra computer laying around, so we get in, we snap screenshots, we get out, and then we have the screenshots that we need that we can audit from there. And we're looking at their clinical notes, verifying that they have the type and number of X-rays that they billed for. We have the clinical notes. We have things of like the medical history forms, consent forms, things like that. So we're looking at comparing the ledger against their clinical notes and X-rays and other supportive documents to say, look, we're not dentists and we're not attorneys, but as a layperson, does this make sense? Does the story make sense that how the patient presented? That the dentist actually examined the patient, that the dentist actually did the treatment that they billed for. And, we talked just briefly about electronic softwares, and they're great. I love that people can use templates, but there are some inherent issues with them, though they help to document a lot of pertinent negatives.
You know what I think is the most important in auditing? One of the most important things. I mean, you're talking about this one-time event if you malpractice, get sued, or HIPAA compliant, but as far as a daily thing, you can go into any dental office and at the end of the day, audit the charts and find at least $200, sometimes $300 where she took bite wings, didn't enter it.
Right.
She took a PA, didn't enter it. I mean, just the misbilling. And here's the dental staff trying to squeeze in a patient, work through lunch, stay late. They're doing a good thing with their body.
Right.
But their brain, it's like, my God, you work through lunch for free because throughout the whole day, between the hygienist and the doctor running 2 or 3 chairs,
Right.
you didn't even enter $300 worth. There are dental consultants who literally get recouped their entire cost just by getting them to go back and say, did everything done in the back get entered so that
Right.
the front office can bill it out?
Right.
Do you agree with that or
I
disagree?
absolutely do. Good gosh, that's where having audit processes can really pay off. Yeah, I mean, do the math on that. If you're missing $200, $300, $400 a day,
Oh, I know.
and you're probably missing more than that if you don't have some sort of process.
All right, it's people, processes. What's that guy? What's the guy in the prophet say? People,
Processes and
people,
Processes.
processes. What was the last P? People, processes.
products, isn't it? No, it's not.
Yeah, and product. I think that's it. But yeah, that's just something that needs to be worked into the daily product.
Yeah.
So you're also available for study plans. I know we're huge in Texas. You do study club programs.
I love doing study programs. You know, it's a smaller, intimate setting. People feel more comfortable opening up and asking questions. What I do isn't rocket science, but it's also something that people don't want to stand up and ask questions in front of large groups and out themselves. You know.
I love your name, the Tooth Cop. I'll tell you the biggest study club in dentistry is on the website and the app. Old guys like me go to conventions and brick deals, but we started the online CE, and we put up 350 courses, and they're coming up on 1 million views.
Wow.
You should record a study club or do an online CE course
Okay.
on all this DEA, HIPAA, infection control. You haven't talked about radiological complaints?
Yeah.
Talk about that.
You know, some states have different. I mean, every state has X-ray requirements. Some states, like Missouri, have none. Basically,
Good old Missouri.
get a registration and that's it. And you've got Texas, where they have state inspectors that go out to the office every 4 or 8 years and do a physical assessment of your machines, verify that you paid your registration, and they're on the far opposite end of that spectrum from Missouri. And people are paying fines for things that they didn't. Things that shouldn't have happened, fall through the cracks.
Well, I know in my office, every
major.
year someone comes out from the government. I don't know what agency they're from.
Recalibrate your machines or check the calibration.
Yeah, just every year some man comes and inspects our machines.
Yeah.
And this is Dentistry Uncensored, and I know that you're always supposed to support your tribe and all that stuff. No, I don't believe that, because I believe that if a tribe doesn't self-regulate, they invite other tribes like government, state, board to come in and regulate for you. So if we don't clean up our own act, you're just inviting another government agency to come in and regulate. But this CBC stuff is it's a lot more radiation than the old panos and bite wings. And I mean, we're not talking a little bit more. It's significantly more. And I think that if people are buying these CBCTs and just for shits and giggles are going to take one on every molar root canal they do and every patient they see and all that stuff, I think 10, 20 years, I think some epidemiologists are going to tell us that was not a good idea. And that's going to invite a lot more regulation into these dental office. I mean, yeah, so that's, so in Texas, what's it like? Is it more like Missouri or more?
No, they're the opposite end of that. Yeah, they're pretty ruthless in some cases. And it's like some of those government inspectors. It's like they were picked on as children, and now they're taking it out on people. And I say that, and heck, I used to be one of those people. That wasn't my case, but really, that's what it's like. I mean, you'll respect my authority kind of thing, and it can be really aggravating for the average dentist to have to deal with somebody like that when they're treating you like that in your own castle.
Yeah.
So
you think we might get a online CE course out of you?
absolutely.
You think? I think that'd be a good deal. It'd be informative, and it would be good marketing for you. I think it'd be a very win-win situation.
Certainly.
Teach these guys. So I know this sounds like a really, really dumb questions, but there are a lot of really young kids that are watching this that might even be a sophomore in dental school. You talked a lot about HIPAA, but what's the difference between HIPAA and OSHA? And what do they need to know about OSHA? You haven't really talked so much about OSHA.
Well, OSHA is more about employee safety, and
It's the Occupational Safe and Healthy Administration or Act, or
yeah.
yeah.
It's all about employee safety. It's about, it kind of incorporates a lot of infection control, even though there's some difference between OSHA and infection control, but very much a symbiotic relationship there. When we're talking about-
Are they the same agency?
No, actually, the infection control guidelines are from the CDC, which are recommendations based on scientific data. And then you've got OSHA, which are federal laws that are based in part on CDC guidelines, which are laws, which are enforceable. And a lot of state agencies, the state dental boards, require compliance with OSHA, but a lot of them also separately require compliance with CDC guidelines. So there's the difference there. When we're talking about HIPAA, that's not about people at all. That's all about information safety and security, protecting patient privacy.
I can see why OSHA would be very serious as an agency, but really shouldn't apply much to dentistry. And the fact that I'll never, ever, ever forget reading on one of their websites, deaths per 1,000. Mm-hmm. Construction was 3 per 1,000 per year. Agriculture was 3 per 1,000 per year. Dentistry was 0.00 per 1,000 per year. Mm-hmm. And then you see on the news, a crane will fall. Construction, that's mining. Oh my God, that's just, that's really high risk stuff. But that agency and that mindset, I mean, people die at work.
Yeah, fortunately, we don't see too many deaths in a dental office.
Yeah.
From an employee standpoint.
And if it does happen, it's usually the dental assistant killing the dentist, and he deserved it. So what else? I still got you for 8 more minutes. What else do you think you could educate these homies on?
Well, it kind of goes back to HIPAA. I'll keep losing sleep over HIPAA stuff. There's that idea that, if you come in contact with a government agency and you're respectful, there's a couple of different schools of thought. One is, hey, I'm a good person, so, the government will take it easy on me, or, it's HIPAA, forget it. I'm not going to worry about it. It's not going to be a problem until it is a problem. Then they're suddenly concerned about it. This is one agency that they don't care who you are, who you made political contributions to, who they'll kick your ass evenly. They hate everybody equally. So this is one agency that's really got me concerned, because a lot of dentists just don't see the importance, or because they don't understand it.
Why was it? What problem? Why was HIPAA created? What problem did its creators in Congress? What were they? What was their mission? What were they trying to solve?
That's like trying to ask my wife what she's thinking. I can't tell you that, Howard.
Yeah.
So I know that its original intent, I think, has been skewed. And the agency that's overseeing this stuff is the Office for Civil Rights. It's the same people that dealt with the civil rights issues in the 1960s, the issues that we're dealing with today, and they're kind of ruthless. So, if that's the people, I think it pays to understand the enemy, if you will, and understanding their psyche, and I think that speaks a lot to what's going on and what we're going to see.
Yeah, and how? What are some of the bigger fines you've seen around the country with HIPAA?
I've seen quite a few recently for millions of dollars, multiple millions.
Like how many multiple millions?
3, 4, 5, 5.3, 5.5.
Yeah, that's more than a divorce.
But I can't point to a single dentist at this moment and say a dentist has paid that. And I think that therein lies the problem. Until it's personal, until it's a dentist in our state, in our community, most dentists are like, you know what, I'll deal with that when it comes up, or if it comes up. So
on Dental Town, I want to spin this in a whole different area. So on Dental Town, a lot of these HIPAA violations, board complaints, whatever, is because you pissed off a staff or a patient.
Right.
And some of the most brutal dentists who have been thrown so under a rug They so pissed off their associate, their dentist, their hygienist that she said, you know what, I'm not even going to quit and walk out. I'm just going to start Xeroxing charts and printing out records. And I mean, my God, I know this one dental assistant, the dentist was doing Sargenti, and she started documenting all that. Then she went to some local endodontist and who never got a referral from this guy and got them documented. Then they one of the paresthesia, they know it's called the patient. By the time it went to the board, the guy was dead before he even got there, and it all happened because the arrogant dentist was pissing off
Right.
staff or patients.
Yep.
I mean, a lot of times that's how the government finds you.
Exactly. And the thing that they nail you on is not just the original problem, but all the other things that you weren't doing wrong. I mean, that you weren't doing right, or other things that you were doing wrong, and they just throw it all on the desk and say, "Here you go."
Well, let me turn that question around you. When HIPAA knocks on the door of a dental office, why did they normally? Was it a staff, patient, some random audit? How does HIPAA show up at your door most likely?
Well, there's the two most common that I'm seeing today are patient complaint. No, I'm sorry, three most common is patient complaint. OCR is now proactively auditing dental offices, and people, when you receive a letter from the government, inform your staff. When you get a letter from the government, hit the fire alarm and let you know about it, especially if you have multiple offices and don't get your mail per se. OCR sends out a letter saying, hey, we're going to do a desk audit on you. If you fail to respond to it, they bump you up and say, you know what, forget the desk audit. We're going to come out and see you. And right now, dentists are on the radar because they're seeing that a lot of dentists have a lot of compliance issues in this area. The other thing is breach reporting. I mean,
Breach reporting?
Yeah, we can think we're doing everything right. We've trained our staff. We have our policies and procedures. We don't say things to people that we shouldn't. And all it takes is one untrained new girl at the front desk. You receive an email, and she clicks on the email and clicks on something that now looks like a letter from one of your referring specialists in a Word document. It has the logo and the signature of the dentist from that referring office in the email. It looks legit. They click on that, and 2 days later you realize that you can't get into your computer and that you've been victimized by a ransomware situation, and now you have a reportable HIPAA breach. And with that, you have to.
Ransomware is a reportable HIPAA breach?
If you can't determine that there's a low probability that information was compromised, then yes. So when that happens, according to federal law, you have to self-report to the government that you had a breach. And when that happens, they bring in their microscopes and they look at the breach, and they look at everything else that you were supposed to have to be in compliance, whether it was related to that breach or not. So they kind of do a comprehensive evaluation, and that's where a lot of dentists are getting caught, and where a lot of their liability is.
You say the new girl at the front desk. It's so amazing. Like, I know a little girl who just got a job at Subway, but before she could work on the first day, she had to go to get a computer. She had to log on. I think there was like 10 different modules.
Yeah.
Each one had a task.
Yeah.
And before that girl showed up to make a tuna fish sandwich,
Yeah.
she had training. Now let's go to Doc's office. He hires Shirley.
Yep.
And Shirley, you must be kidding. Her day one, he just, here's your
phone.
chair,
Yeah.
your degree, your job was named after a piece of furniture. You are now the front desk. I'm going to go do a root canal.
Yeah.
And she's just saying like,
Yeah.
hello. And she might work. And then the back to Dentrix, Eaglesoft, and Open Dental. When you go to Hilton or Hyatt or the softwares, there's only 7 things we do to check you in. And when we check you out, there's only 6 things. And then you return your rental car, and Hertz has this little smartphone, and there's like 4 things they're gonna do, and it's all streamlined. Then you go over to Dentrix and Eaglesoft, and they'll even tell you can go to the report generator. 80% of the software has never even been touched one time.
Right.
So she's sitting at the desk, just mesmerized by 40 million bullshit buttons.
Yeah.
And doesn't even know which one of those buttons does she have to do, because you should be able to go into Dentrix, Eaglesoft, Open Dental, and just look at every single function. We are not going to do that. We are not going to do that. Or they could go get some big name brand consultants like Sandy Purdue or whoever, and she says, okay, here's how we check them in. So let's get rid of all this shit. So that when that little girl sits at the desk, She just sees, here's 6 things I do
Yeah.
to check you in.
Right.
Here's 4 things I do to check you out. And then it'd be easier to have processes that are streamlined, less employee training, and then you
Right.
don't miss the HIPAA thing,
Right.
or you don't miss, well, how did you find our office to find out what marketing's working?
Right.
And then since a telephone doesn't come into the practice management system, you don't know what number you're calling for because your ad on Facebook should be different than your ad in direct mail with a different number, or your billboard or your monument sign. So you can say, oh, they called in from the number on the billboard by the highway. Oh, they called in from this direct mail piece of it. So yeah, dentistry is so good at doing dentistry. Their hands-on surgery in the operatory is so good. In the last 30 years, it's gotten so much better. But the business side of it hasn't
Suffering.
even budged in 30
Right.
years.
Right.
When I was 10 years old and worked at my old man's Sonic Drive-In, he just had a cash register, but it's made by National Cash Register. It had more practice management. Like when the meat man came and delivered 10 boxes of meats for 50 patties each, you entered the cash register. The staff clocked in and clocked out on the cash register. At the end of the day, with just a little roll of paper, you could print out a report,
Yeah.
and everything my old man would show me and go over with me at 10 years old, I can't do at age 54 with my grandchildren in dentistry, because that's because and the reason is Stan Bergman, the CEO of Shine, he listened to me, and so he got an MBA. He sent a survey out to these dentists, a random controlled sample, asked them what my dumbass mind thinks, and they didn't agree. They said they wanted to change the color of the font and have voice activated perio and all this bullshit, and it kind of reminds me of Henry Ford. Henry Ford said, you don't ask your market what they want. I mean, if Henry Ford went out there and said, hey, would you like to shoot your horse and eat him and buy a car? Everybody loved their horse. They named their horse. They fed him, coated him. And when they started out with a horseless carriage, they died. And Henry Ford said, they love their horse. Let's take the horse out of it, and let's just try to sell them on the advantage of a car. Like a horse can only go 20 miles a day, and a Model T can go 20 miles in an hour. And so a lot of times you have to lead your customers because your customers aren't smart enough to see where you're going. Jobs used to say that all the time. He said, I'm not asking Americans what they think of their smartphone. They're not smart enough to know I'll tell you what your smartphone needs to do. And he was right.
Yep.
Yeah. But that was the fastest hour ever. We're at hour 2. I hope we get an online CE course out of you.
Absolutely.
How do my homies contact you?
Contact us through our website. Like I said, we have a chat function, dentalcompliance.com, or 817-755-0035.
That's 817-755-0035. Do you give out your email?
Tooth Cop at Dental Compliance. Easy to remember.
And that's your name on Dental Town.
That's my name.
Yeah, I love it. Hey, Tooth Cop, thank you so much
Glad
for
to be
coming
here.
out to my house.
Thanks for having me.
And it was amazing. He lives in Dallas, and I said, we'll do this Skype. He goes, no, I want to fly out and do it in person. Why did you do that?
FaceTime, man. Nothing beats the old-fashioned FaceTime.
My God, and I got a hard face to forget, so
Yeah.
I'm sure you won't forget.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Man,
Thanks for having me.
seriously, thank you so much, bud.